just wrong. Bernie, I love you, but not now. Work on recounts. Democrats lost because they refused to acknowledge Palestine. Okay, that's fair. You can't ignore the country's deep-seated racism and misogyny. Those comments are so out of touch. Agreed. Also, Bernie would have beat Trump in 2016. Okay, that's not bad. How when Harris spoke of her policies to make the economy better for us and to provide more opportunities for people who purchase homes, etc., we lost because people don't want to see a black woman become president. Like, you are not hearing anything. If that is your analysis of this circumstance, if that's your analysis, you're not hearing anything. Television Man told you $50,000 in tax cuts for small businesses is good, and that's like solid economic policy. So you're like, what do you mean? Everybody said that that was like the best possible thing to say, and I don't understand it. Like, it doesn't make sense. You misspelled white supremacy, but go off. No, Bernie, Democrats lost because the majority of Americans have lost the ability and the interest in telling truth apart from fiction. It's that simple. It's sad because like there's so much that is somewhat correct in this assessment, but that's just the table. You know, you can't demand to play a different board game when you're playing Monopoly. Okay, you can't be like, well, I think we should play as though we're playing Risk. No, man, you're playing Monopoly. Play by the rules. You know, it just doesn't make sense. The reality of the matter is everyone that says racism and misogyny is a factor in this, or white supremacy is a factor in this, yeah, they're not wrong. Of course it is a factor in this. That's America. But Trump doesn't play by the rules. That's a fantastic point that you just made. Exactly. Trump never, on the other hand, complains, though, in the sense that like his complaints are always echoing the resentment that average Americans feel, even if it's on his own personal key issues. He has a perfect way of tying that back to his own audience. Like, I've never seen another motherfucker turn around and be like, I mean, he channels that they're not coming after me, they're coming after you, I'm just in the way. Every single argument that he makes is basically that. I've never seen somebody like Donald Trump, a zesty ace, biromantic, you know, queer visibility candidate, a liberal his whole life, a billionaire real estate developer, shits on a golden toilet, lives in an ivory tower, born with a silver spoon, going to the Rust Belt and complaining about sissy Graydon Carter and his Vanity Fair parties, and have people go, hell yes, sir, you're right. Everything that he complains about, people think he's like on the liberal elite. I feel like if Kamala Harris ran and was like consistently talking about how racist and white supremacist America was, that would be objectively depressing for her own turnout.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about the economics. You've talked about how the Democratic Party is out of touch when it comes to economic issues. Some Democrats are saying it's not just economic issues, it's cultural issues as well. Here's what Democratic strategist James Carville had to say. Take a look.
What killed the Democrats and what killed Biden was a sense of disorder. And part of the sense of disorder was the unfortunate events of what I would refer to as the woke era.
Has the Democratic Party's focus on identity politics gone too far, Senator?
Let me answer it this way. I think if the Democratic Party must continue to stand up against all forms of bigotry. And Democrats should hold their head high in saying, we led the fight for women's rights and to protect the woman's constitutional right for abortion. We led the fight for civil rights, for gay rights. That is something we should be proud of. But it's not either or, Chris, and this is the problem. You can do both. You could say that I'm for raising.
I take it one step further. I say one can only happen with the other. Because if you don't win elections, you can't do legislation that protects marginalized communities. And if you want to win elections, you have to have a populist left economic message. You can be uncompromising in your values while simultaneously asking people, does this put food on your table or not? A question I keep repeating to people that come to me on a daily basis about trans rights is always this. Let's say you forcibly reversed the HRT and gender surgeries of every single trans person in America. Does that immediately or even in the future improve your material conditions? Does that put more food on your table? Does that make your shelter more secure? Does that lower the price of rent? Does that actually help you in any meaningful way? It's not going to lower the price of eggs. Someone has told you that you should focus on this. And in a sea of hate, you decided, yeah, trans people are weird. I actually think that's a right thing to focus on. That's it. And the other side of this, in terms of like constantly doing hyper specific messaging to different identity groups within the base that we understand it of the Democratic Party is also silly, because it's not like trans people exist in a separate plane of existence. Like, they still have to rent. You think trans people are not going to benefit from universal health care? You think trans people are not going to benefit from lowering the cost of housing? Yeah, of course they're going to benefit. Same with black people. Same with Latino people. This is why left economic populism is very successful. You fight the battles that you have to fight to defend trans people, while you simultaneously offer everyone something that gets them on board. You say Medicare for all means for all. It means for you, and it means for trans people too. There's no world where we're like, nah, we're going to gut this. Fuck that.
And I know that you heard President Biden and Vice President Harris tout over and over the record of supporting workers, helping the middle class, some of the things that you were instrumental in helping pass, like lowering the cost of insulin. You saw the president walking a picket line. They forgave student loan debt as much as they could. You said yourself in July that he had a strong record, which you just repeated here. So it sounds like it's not maybe as much about policies and more about messaging and communication.
It's not messaging, Donna. It's a fundamental understanding of saying, look, the Biden administration has done a lot of good things, period.
I agree.
We should all be proud of that. But it has to be put in the broad context of the reality of the American economy today. And that is when you have three people on top owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. When you have millions and millions of people working for starvation wages.
This is what Kamala should have done too. Like, expand upon the accomplishments of the administration and say it's not enough and we are going to go way beyond.
A top aide, former aide to John Fetterman and Harry Reid, Adam Jenelson, told the Washington Post that Democrats are preoccupied with the narrow interest of college-educated elite activists more than everyday working people. Do you agree with that?
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying here, is that the vast 60% of our people live in paycheck to paycheck. How do we not talk and fight for raising the minimum wage to a living wage? Dana, on Tuesday, in the election, in the state of Missouri, a conservative state, they became one of the many states that voted, I think, 58% to raise the minimum wage. Now, how is it that in Congress and the Senate, we haven't even brought a damn minimum wage bill onto the floor? We are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. The Affordable Care Act is a stopgap measure. It is not addressing the real health care crisis in America. Why aren't we saying, yes, health care is a human right? We're going to take on the insurance companies and the drug companies. We're going to pass the PRO Act to make it easier for workers to join unions. We're going to expand Social Security by lifting it. We're going to demand that the billionaires start paying their fair share of taxes. You know, Dana, all of these issues that I'm talking about, these are not Bernie Sanders ideas. These are, without exception, popular ideas that Democrats, Republicans, and independents support. Now, the people who don't support it is the billionaire class, and they got a lot of power. But we've got to be prepared to take them on.
But what the voters supported is a man who would never do any of what you just said. I mean, not even close.
Right. But what that man named Donald Trump did do is he said, I feel your pain. I know that you're hurting, and I have an explanation. Well, his explanation was bogus. You know, millions of people coming across the borders.
Why do people just refuse to understand this basic point? If one party is not addressing the pain that people are experiencing and the other party is taking advantage of that pain and redirecting that anger to easily attacked minorities, then yeah, people are stupid enough to tap in with the other party. That's it. I don't know how much I can simplify it. I don't know how much Bernie can simplify it. You have to be, I guess, getting paid the big bucks like Dana is to refuse to reckon with that. That's the real problem here. You can't convince someone if they are professionally unconvincible.
Legal. We have to strengthen the borders. That goes without saying, but that is not the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem right now is to have a small number of people on top who have enormous economic and political power. How, for example, can the Democrats not say, look, we got to get rid of the Citizens United? In this campaign, in the Republican Party, Democratic Party, billionaires exerted their power. Most Americans know that's wrong. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so we've talked about the economic